Ah, here we are. I'm getting pretty good at willing myself into existence. My name is Mike, and this is TheBoredCyborg. Welcome back to yet another episode. Today we're going to take a look at my Blu-Ray movie box sets. Not my TV series or anything like that, just my Blu-ray movie box sets. It's the best way I could put it. And I'm going to be omitting the horror Blu-ray box set collection. I'm going to save that for October. This video is going to be big enough as it is, and I'm not going to waste much more time, but I'd love to know what your favorite Blu-ray movie box set is. This would be an example. Back to the Future trilogy here. I guess I'll show this one first. That would be an example of a Blu-ray movie box set. I'd love to know what your favorite in your collection is, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below. We'll get a little discussion rolling. Now, I believe I've collected every single one of my Blu-ray movie box sets. I can't seem to find my Mummy one, which is like a steelbook. I'm pretty sure I didn't see it in the ones I pulled off the shelf. It might be in my... I've recently watched The Scorpion King, so it's probably in my piles of stuff that I've been watching. But I'm just going to jump right into my collection, guys. Now, I'm not going to talk about these movies in depth, of course, because there's, altogether probably 200-300 movies here. First up, we've got Back to the Future, the trilogy. I, of course, love the Back to the Future films, the first two. The first one is my favorite, second one, second favorite, third one, third favorite, of course. But I love the first two as sort of a brother-sister pairing. And this here is the 30th anniversary trilogy. This was put out in 2015 as the 30th anniversary, and it's beautiful. I mean, it comes in like a nice digipack, which I really love these digipacks. Full color artwork, of course, a special features disc there. And yeah, that is Back to the Future, the trilogy, of course, classic films. Mad Max Anthology, this one's cool. It has, of course, all the Mad Max films. Mad Max, Road Warrior, Thunderdome, and Fury Road. Road Warrior still being my favorite, Fury Road close, very, very close. These are some of the cards, some of the art cards they included, which are really cool. So I'll put those right back in there. That is the Mad Max Anthology. Next up, we have The Beast. I've been watching some of these recently, rewatching, of course. The Bond Collection. This one has everything up to Skyfall, I believe. It wasn't released with Skyfall in it, but it had a spot for Skyfall, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so 2012. There's Skyfall right there. And then a bonus disc, of course. I wish they left a few more spots open, because, of course, there are going to be more Bond movies. But this has all of the Bond movies from Dr. No up until Skyfall. And I do have Spectre. I do have Spectre in the wall. Yes, I have Spectre in the wall, so I do have every single Bond film. Moving along, we have the Lethal Weapon collection. I love all four of these films, all directed by Richard Donner, all starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover as just two of the best on-screen buddy cops that you could imagine. And they develop throughout the series, they change throughout the series, new characters are added. It's just a great franchise, and it feels very homely every time you go back to it. It feels like you're revisiting, or you're visiting a family or something like that, because it's the same production team throughout all four films, and it really has that thread connecting them. And it's a special series. I love all of these, and four, I had a renewed appreciation for the last time I watched it. It's my second favorite, I think, Lethal Weapon movie at this point. So that is Lethal Weapon Collection. Next up, we have the Godfather Collection. I love the first film, love the second film even more, and the third film, I could really do without. I feel like the first two, that's all that you really need to watch. The third one comes, 12, 13, 14 years later? We'll just say 15 years later or so. And it just is a little bit out of touch, and it feels like a TV movie at points, and Sofia Coppola is a terrible actor. Much better director, terrible actor, and it has a lot of glaring issues. But the Godfather Collection, of course. This is an older collection. I know there's been re-releases and remasters and the Coda thing, which I don't know much about. I gotta look into it, to be honest. But nothing could ever touch the first two films. They are some of my favorites of all time, especially number 2. Next up, we have the, Cornetto, Red Cornetto trilogy. Is that right? Is that what they call this? I forget. I know it's Cornetto the car. If it's a red Cornetto, blue Cornetto, I forget. The World's End, Hot Fuzz, and Shaun of the Dead. Actually, they went in reverse order. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then The World's End. These are loosely tied together, of course. They just exist in the same world. They have the same actors, things like that, but they are not following a storyline or anything. It's not a trilogy in that sense, but it is a trilogy in the sense that they all have same car that appears in them, and they all exist sort of in the same universe, and they have the same feel to them, the same kinetic action sort of feel to them. So that is we'll call it the Simon Pegg Nick Frost trilogy. Next up, we have a little franchise called Star Wars that I'm sure not many of you have heard of. This is the only set I need in terms of Star Wars. I'm sure I will get a sequel trilogy set at some point. I do own 2 of the films separately. I am not a fan of the sequel trilogy really much at all. I will revisit them, of course, but this is the set that I really, really love. This is one of the prized possessions, and it has full color artwork, stylized, describing some of the big scenes in the film. I just love this. You remember the big scene in the films where Boba Fett was riding like a chimera lizard thing, right? And this has a couple special features discs, of course, and the first 6 films. So that is episode 1 through 6. They tell a cohesive story. You could say what you will about the prequel trilogy. I still enjoy it, even more so now after the sequel trilogy has come out and has been, in my opinion, an atrocity. Atrocity might be a strong word, but it was a catastrophe. No cohesive story. This is where it's at for me, especially the first 3. Star Wars. Here's a set I've yet to open. This is the Shinya Tsukamoto set. This one I got when it came out, and it quickly went out of print. If I'm not mistaken, it may have gotten another print. I'm not exactly sure. This one has Kotoko, Killing, 2 different films, sorry. A Snake of June and Vital. Tokyo Fist and Bullet Ballet, and then Tetsuo and Tetsuo 2. Of course, Tetsuo 1 and 2 are some of my favorites of all time. Those are the only films I've seen out of this, to be quite honest, so I have a lot of Tsukamoto to catch up on, and I'm looking forward to it. I think he's going to become one of my favorite directors. He kind of already is, just based on the few films that I've seen by him. I love him. Love his work. Love his short films. Solid Metal Nightmares, the films of Shinya Tsukamoto, put out by Arrow Video. So glad to have this. Here's a doozy. This one's from overseas, so a few of these are going to be Region B. Lou Ferrigno collection. That's right, it has Hercules, The Adventures of Hercules 2, and Sinbad and of the Seven Seas. Now, I've seen the first Hercules and Sinbad of the Seven Seas. Both are bananas. They are Italian films directed during the 80s. So many wacky things. I think there's a scene where Hercules throws a bear out of the atmosphere and into the universe. If either that was a dream I had or I did see that in one of these movies. The Sinbad of the Seven Seas is another one that follows the exploits of Sinbad and Sinbad the sailor and his crew. And they're just so much fun. I believe directed by Luigi Cozzi, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, it doesn't say the measly director on the... here we go. Louis Coates directed the Hercules movies. So yes, that is Luigi Cozzi. That's his American pseudonym, Americanized. And then the third one, Sinbad of the Seven Seas, is Enzo Castellari. So another Italian genre legend. This is a great set to have, and I'm pretty confident it was only released overseas. The Marx Brothers. This is another one I haven't picked up, guys. I've only seen Duck Soup when it comes to the Marx Brothers. I do like the Marx Brothers quite a bit. I've seen a bunch of their shorts, don't get me wrong, but not the feature films. Duck Soup is the only one. I loved it. I thought it was a great satire and just a great comedy film, and I really grew an appreciation for... I was about to say Karl Marx. I've been reading so much history and so much political history. The lead Marx brother, Groucho Marx, I grew an appreciation for him after watching Duck Soup. I was like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. He's the best of his brothers and just so pinpoint with his humor and his comedic timing. It's fantastic. So that is The Marx Brothers, starring Karl Marx. My favorite of the Marx Brothers. Die Hard collection. No, I don't need the 5th Die Hard. I'm a completionist, but I have some principles, and I will not be getting the 5th Die Hard anytime soon. Bruce Willis in Die Hard, the first 4 films, the 4 films that count. Of course, the first is my favorite, the third my second favorite, the second my third favorite, and the fourth my fourth favorite. And it has some special features, of course, here, and in the digibook style, which, again, I really do enjoy. And it has pictures from each film. The first Die Hard is one of my favorites of all time. It's in my top 10. I've seen it dozens and dozens of times. And I've seen the other 2 quite a few times as well. This one I picked up pretty recently in a thrift, and I stopped at a grocery store and was like, what? this is kind of a cool set to see at a grocery store, and it was $10. The Frank Darabont collection, Green Mile, The Majestic, and Shawshank Redemption. Again, not a connected trilogy, but all films that have sort of similar themes and are all directed by Frank Darabont. And 2 of them are Stephen King adaptations. So it's clear to see that Darabont was a big fan of Stephen King. He would go on to also do The Mist, actually. That would have made more sense in here, to be honest. But that's okay, because I didn't have The Majestic on Blu-ray. The other 2 I did, and I traded them in or sold them off to fund this. And I just really liked this set here. It's just really nice. It has special feature bonus disc as well. And yeah, haven't cracked into this yet, but that's because I've seen, of course, The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption. The Majestic is one I actually haven't seen, and I need to rectify that. X-Men and the Wolverine collection. So this has X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men First Class, and the Wolverine. So it doesn't have Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, or Dark Phoenix. I own all of those but Dark Phoenix up to this point, and I do enjoy all of them for different reasons. I recently watched about half of Dark Phoenix, and I fell asleep, to be honest, so that might say something about the film itself. I didn't hate it as much as everybody else did, but I thought it was rather bland and just kind of boring, to be honest. So, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan, but this is the X-Men and Wolverine collection. Kind of an odd set to have, since it has the first of the new trilogy, or the new quadrilogy at this point, X-Men First Class, but that's okay. It's got a bunch of the classic films that I love, and I love revisiting these time and time again. Next up, we have a Clint Eastwood collection. This is more of his directorial work. I'll go over the films in it real quick. Gran Torino, Letters from Iwo Jima, $1 Million Baby. I wish it had Flags of Our Fathers. I realized I didn't have that in the collection anywhere because I, for some reason, thought it was in this set. Mystic River, Unforgiven, The Rookie, Absolute Power, Dirty Harry, Kelly's Heroes, Where Eagles Dare. I do have a Dirty Harry collection. Yeah, it is in here, so I'll talk about that in a minute. This is kind of an odd set. I believe it was released here in America, but it was much more expensive than the Region B version. Is this Region B or all region? Pretty confident it's Region B, but I'm not exactly sure. So this one has a bunch of films in it, as you could see. Again, just Clint Eastwood films. These are the ones that he did not direct. He may have directed a couple of them. Actually, I know he did, like Play Misty for Me. But The Eager Sanction, Breezy, High Plains Drifter, Joe Kidd, Play Misty for Me, The Beguiled, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, and Coogan's Bluff, and each have their individual case and artwork, which is great, as you could see. So I thought this was a nice, compact little Eastwood set with a lot of the more obscure Eastwood films from the 70s and 80s, and his first directorial one, Play Misty for Me. One of my prized possessions here, Fritz Lang collection. I admittedly haven't dug into this as much as I would like to and as much as I anticipate doing, but this has a bunch of silent films from the 20s. The Spiders, Harakiri, The Wandering Shadow, Four Around the Women, or The Woman, Destiny, Dr. Mabuse, The Gambler, Die Nibelungen, the entire film, Metropolis, Spies, Woman in the Moon, and The Plague of Florence, which is directed by Otto Rippert. I don't know what the deal with that one is. It's not directed by Lang. But yeah, this is such a cool set to own in the digibook style. A little bit different than usual, but a bunch of information about the films, and yeah, this is just one of my coveted sets that Kino put out. I have no idea what this is going for these days, but it is nestled safely in the collection so that when I decide to start getting into Fritz Lang's work, I can do so. And this is a pretty comprehensive set, not everything, of course, but it's a great starter and a great piece to have in the collection as I struggle to get it back into the box. Bear with me. Moving on, we have the Steven Spielberg collection here. This is another kind of odd set. It just has a random hodgepodge of Steven Spielberg films, starting with Duel, the TV movie, then Sugarland Express. This is not all of his work. This is just, like I said, a selected works of Steven Spielberg, we'll say, aka the ones that were released by a particular studio, I would imagine. Sugarland Express, which is one of the 5 or 6 films from Spielberg I've yet to see, but plan to rectify that soon. Jaws, of course. 1941 is one I need to rewatch because I didn't remember enjoying it too much. E.T. Always is another one I've yet to see, to be honest. Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 2, Lost World. And yeah, I love this quote. When I grow up, I still want to be a director. That is great and inspiring. So that is the Steven Spielberg collection, a beautiful set. Now, I might have some other Criterion sets in the Criterion Select collection, but this one I pulled out the Katsi trilogy. I think this is the only one I have in terms of Criterion. There might be a couple more. Koyanis Katsi is one of my favorite films of all time. The Philip Glass score I listen to outside of the movie. I think it's brilliant. It rouses me like very few pieces of work do in terms of music. I mean, I love music, don't get me wrong, but this there's a particular style that he employed for Koyanis Katsi that really intrigues me. It's at once hopeful but utterly dreadful. And it's just, there's so many emotions watching Koyanis Katsi, and I love the film for what it is. Poya Katsi and Nakoi Katsi. I've not seen the sequels, believe it or not. Directed by Godfrey Reggio, but the one that made the real difference in Koyanis Katsi was Ron Frick, the cinematographer. Once he left, the other two films I hear aren't quite up to snuff, but this is the Katsi trilogy. I'm so glad I was able to pick this up last year. I don't know, I have a feeling it's going to go out of print. Here we have the Transformers 3 movie set. I think there are 5 in total. I think I'm missing Age of Extinction and The Last Night. I've not seen past number 2, to be honest. I've recently rewatched the first Transformers, and it did not impress me as much as it did back in the day, but I still have the Transformers trilogy here, at least the first 3. Now we're digging into this box here. We're not even halfway through, guys. Mission Impossible 6 film collection. This has all of the Mission Impossible films up to this point. Mission Impossible 1, 2, 3, 4, which is Ghost Protocol, 5, which is Rogue Nation, and my favorite of all of them, number 6, which is Fallout. I think one of the finest action films ever made. And I mean that. I've thought about it. I've written a little bit about it. That is my favorite. One of the best action movies ever made, in my opinion. There are so many great sequences. There are fisticuffs. There are stunt sequences. There are shootouts. It is an action movie fan's dream, in my opinion. And I don't understand. And it's all practically done, of course. Tom Cruise's crazy ass is doing all of his own stunts. And I don't understand why more people aren't talking about this in the way that John Wick sort of set the groundwork for action movies to come toward the middle of last decade. I felt like this ramped things up in the action genre, and a lot of people agree with me, don't get me wrong. It's not like, people hate this film. This is universally accepted as one of the best Mission Impossible films, but I don't know, I just feel like, God, I talk to people, I'm like, it's one of the best, and they're like, well, I don't know about that, and I'm like, but it is, and I give all my reasons, and, subjective opinions, of course. I just think it's brilliant. Do any of you guys think it's one of the best action movies ever made? We'll say top 100, something like that, top 50. I certainly think it is. That's a video for another day. One of the cooler sets I have, I'm sure is out of print now. I got this years and years ago, probably 6-7 years ago. Ultimate Gangsters Collection. Classics. Yeah, this is really, really cool. This has Little Caesar with Edward G. Robinson, The Public Enemy with Cagney, The Petrified Forest with Bogart, and White Heat with Cagney. I think I got that all right. So, films from the 30s to 1931, Little Caesar, Public Enemy 31, Petrified Forest 36, and White Heat 49. This is just one of the coolest sets. I've seen Little Caesar, and I've seen The Public Enemy. The only Cagney and Edward G. Robinson starring films that I've seen, I feel like I've seen Edward G. Robinson in other things, but this is such a cool set. Comes with a little booklet, of course, hardcover booklet. Look here, see? That's kind of the immortalized meme that Little Caesar started. Look here. He's got that pouty face and that really stereotypical gangster accent from the 30s and 20s and 30s. So
if you ain't out of town by tomorrow morning, you won't never leave it except in a pine box.
This set is so cool to have in the collection, and I'm happy to have it. I wonder if they released any others. I remember thinking that they did release some others, because this one says classics. I think there's a more modern set out there, if I'm not mistaken. Planet of the Apes. I've only seen the first 3 Planet of the Apes and bits and pieces of the last 2, to be honest with you. I love the first Planet of the Apes. I like the second Planet of the Apes. The third Planet of the Apes, kind of. I don't remember much about it. It's not as memorable as the first 2. At least the second one, Escape. I remember the underground bunker with, the mutated creatures and the rocket and the big explosion at the end where Charlton Heston, kind of tries to obliterate the franchise. metaphorically. Planet of the Apes collection. I do have the animated series somewhere too, in the animated series or the TV series collection here. Planet of the Apes, what can you say? Rod Serling wrote the first one. Not many people know that. There's a bit of trivia. Starship Troopers trilogy. This has the first, or all 3 live-action films. I actually have the 2 Shinji Aramaki. I believe he did both Shinji Aramaki animated CG films. But the first film is really the only one that you need to see. It's a brilliant satire on war and pride and nationalism. And it's based on a Heinlein story from the 50s. Verhoeven took it and just flipped it all on its head, and it's brilliant. One of the greats. I absolutely love Starship Troopers. Verhoeven, one of the great sci-fi masters of the last, 40 years or so. Total Recall, Starship Troopers, RoboCop, and even Hollow Man I'll throw in there. I think Hollow Man's an underrated movie. Batman Begins. Here's the Christopher Nolan collection here. This one has Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight, Inception, Memento, and Insomnia, including a little book, as you could see there. Very cool. This came into my job, actually, and it didn't have all the movies in it. So we bought the other movies in, put them on the shelf, and I took the box home for free, and then put my copies inside of it. I thought that was a pretty cool box there. So we have the Batman box set here, all 4 of the Batman films from the 80s and 90s, the 2 Tim Burton ones and the 2 Joel Schumacher films. I love the first Batman. Probably my favorite Batman. If not for Batman Returns, both kind of are vying for the top position, and Dark Knight. I love the Dark Knight too. Is one of these loose in here? Yep, sure is. And then Batman Forever, I really do enjoy. I know people shit on the Schumacher films, but I think Schumacher takes the 60s show and takes Tim Burton's aesthetic and adds his own flavor to it. It still feels a little bit like Tim Burton, but it's a little bit more comic booky, a little bit more goofy, not as serious. And I really like it. Some of the decisions I wish weren't made are like Jim Carrey as the Riddler, because he's just really doing Jim Carrey. And Tommy Lee Jones seems miscast. Everybody wishes they got Billy D. Williams. But I do love the first 3 films. I have so much fun with Forever still to this day, and I'm nostalgic for it. And I even enjoy Batman and Robin. Again, nostalgia is a big reason for it, and it's bad, don't get me wrong. But I still do enjoy watching it. Nothing comes close to those first 2, though. Bum bum da dum bum 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 bum. Only seen the Harry Potter movies 1 time through, and I really loved the experience. I actually haven't seen the last film, believe it or not, because a friend of mine, what's up, Adam, if you're watching, ruined the last movie for me, completely spoiled it, so I had no reason to watch it, and I still haven't watched it, which is ridiculous, and no reason was a strong, I was a stubborn kid. But man, when the ending is spoiled for you, it kind of takes away. He's the same one. Adam is the same guy who spoiled the end of Orphan for me, and I've yet to watch that, so there you go. But I do love the Harry Potter films, my favorite still being Prisoner of Azkaban, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Just a great movie. Man with No Name trilogy. This has, of course, Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. These are some of the best westerns of all time. Good, Bad, and the Ugly is one of my favorite westerns of all time, if not my favorite. I'd have to do a list. I'd have to figure it out. But yes, these are some of the best ever, all directed by Sergio Leone and music by Ennio Morricone. So, you guys know it. Dirty Harry collection. I've only seen the first Dirty Harry movie. I'm savoring the rest, to be honest. Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, and The Deadpool, which I believe stars a young Jim Carrey in a cameo supporting kind of role. More than a cameo, I think. A supporting role, I'll say. And I love the first Dirty Harry movie, of course. RoboCop trilogy. I love all 3 RoboCops, while recognizing that the first one is objectively the best. I love the first one. Verhoeven, of course. Irvin Kershner comes in and directs number 2, and I really think it's an underrated film. It looks fantastic. The suit looks great. The action is good. It has some problems with pacing and tonal shifts, but overall, I really have a good time with RoboCop 2. It's just so violent and over the top, and I love it. Number 3 gets a bad rap. I really enjoy number 3. I feel like if the other 2 didn't exist, people would talk about number 3 more, but everyone hates it. They changed the actor. Peter Weller's no longer RoboCop. Robert Burke, the guy from Thinner, I always mix up his name. He's got one of those 3-piece names. And it's directed by Fred Decker. Shane Black didn't help write the the script. I know it was Fred Decker, but in RoboCop trilogy, I really enjoy these films. All three of them, damn it. This is the Shyamalan trilogy here. Signs, Sixth Sense, and Unbreakable. This looks Region B, but it's actually all region. I love all these films, especially Sixth Sense, and even more so Unbreakable. I think Unbreakable holds up remarkably. I think it's Shyamalan's best film by far. It ages so damn well. It's a deconstruction of the Marvel Cinematic Universe before the Marvel Cinematic Universe existed. It's just so good. It's such a deconstruction of the superhero as mythology. And Signs scared the shit out of me when I watched it when I was younger. And I hope it does the same to me as an adult. As an adult. I think it came out when I was an adult then. But as I've gotten older, I hope it still sticks with me. I know there are some things plot-wise that are really ridiculous that shouldn't have made their way into the film. But that's okay. Indiana Jones. The complete series, one of my coveted sets. This is one of my most watched sets. I watch these movies a few times a year, over and over and over again. I love them. My favorite is Raiders. While recognizing that Last Crusade is probably a better made movie, Raiders just has all of the magic for me. So does Crusade. I love Temple too, and I'm even a Crystal Skull apologist. I really enjoy Crystal Skull. It's got some great moments, but it does lose its way as the film goes on. I've got some major problems like the double, triple, quadruple agent played by Ray Winstone, I think it was. But it is what it is. I love the Indiana Jones movies, and hopefully we're still getting number 5. I'm hearing rumors that it's going to take place in space. Okie dokie. The Superman collection. I've only seen the first 2. I've seen the Donner cut of number 2 and Donner's first film, Spider-Man. Superman. Spider-Man, Jesus, as the discs are falling out everywhere. This has all the films up to Superman Returns, and it also has some bonus features. And it comes in a pretty nifty set here, as you could see. So, pretty cool. This comes in a much slimmer set that is out there somewhere. The Scorpion King 5-movie collection. Oh boy, yes, I own all 5 Scorpion King movies out that are in existence right now. I think there might be a 6th coming out, or it just came out or something. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not expecting much from these movies. These are modern day, in my opinion. Like in the 50s and 60s, the Italians were doing the Hercules movies. These are modern day sword and sandal kind of action fantasy movies with not really practical effects, some practical effects, but a lot of CGI and things like that, especially in the later movies from what it looks like. But the first film I do enjoy. It's an adventurous movie that shows that The Rock has some charisma and presence, but it doesn't really click, we'll say. It doesn't come together as a full blockbuster action movie. Jack Ryan collection. This has all the Jack Ryan films up to this point. Hunt for Red October, Patriot Games, Sum of All Fears, Clear and Present Danger, Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. I gotta be honest, the Harrison Ford ones I really do enjoy. Tense, technical thrillers with Harrison Ford as Jack Ryan, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, but I do conflate the two. I know one, the villain is Sean Bean, the other one, Willem Dafoe is the villain. Or no, Willem Dafoe's not the villain, that's like his partner. Either way, really well-made films. I like both of them quite a bit. Who directed? Was Philip Noyce did those? Yeah, Philip Noyce did both of them. Hunt for Red October is great too. John McTiernan film. I do need to rewatch that one. I have seen Sum of All Fears. I did enjoy it. And same thing with Shadow Recruit. I don't remember anything about Shadow Recruit, to be honest, so can't say I really enjoyed that one. Steve McQueen collection. The Great Escape, Magnificent Seven, The Thomas Crown Affair, and The Sand Pebbles. I've only seen The Magnificent Seven out of this set, believe it or not. Great film, of course, and was basically an Americanized, a Western version of The Seventh Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. And this one I do need to dig into further, clearly. Next up, we have the Star Trek collection. This is the first 6 Star Trek movies that covered the original series. I haven't seen the Next Generation movies, believe it or not, because I've only seen a couple seasons of the Next Generation, which I plan to rectify. I'm just very slow with television series, but that's okay. I'm savoring the Star Trek Next Generation movies that came out in the 90s and early noughts. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with those, so. And there's no reason I can't really jump in now. I understand who the Borg are and stuff, and I know they play a big part. But this, of course, has the original Star Trek, the motion picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, The Final Frontier, The Undiscovered Country, and The Voyage Home. All films I do enjoy, while recognizing that some are better than others. I still have a really good time with all of them. Seeing the crew back in cinematic form, all interacting with each other. They all come back. All of the original cast comes back for these, and it's quite a treat to have 6 of these movies. You know, not only the original series, which is fantastic, I've seen all of it, but to have all 6 of these movies. And some of them have some really special moments in them with the crew and with the boys and stuff like that. And I just love that these exist, to be quite honest with you. And Shatner directed one of them. That's not... that a lot of people hate. Even Nimoy directed, I think, The Search for Spock, if I'm not mistaken. Next up, we have the Bruce Lee collection. I was so glad to hear that Criterion was dipping their toes into some action and gave us the Bruce Lee collection. I also have the Police Story collection on Criterion Blu-ray, but that was only 2 films, and it was in my Criterion box. I actually have it boxed because I'm planning to do a little shelf or a little area for my Criterion movies. But I do have Police Story 1 and 2, of course. And then the Bruce Lee collection, I'm happy to see Criterion continue to put out some martial arts stuff. And this has a bunch of special features and different cuts of the films, but it has all of Bruce Lee's movies that he made while he was alive. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, and Game of Death. It even has Game of Death 2, which was a posthumous release that cut together some of his older scenes and stuff like that, unused stuff, and made it into somewhat of a movie as far as I understand. There are a couple that I still need to see. I still need to see Game of Death and The Way of the Dragon, but these are films I am savoring because I've seen Fist of Fury, probably my favorite of the bunch. Enter the Dragon I love to death, and The Big Boss is classic too. So I believe that was his first film. Love this. Love that this exists, and I still haven't cracked it, as you can see. Next up, we have a couple Region B ones that I think you guys will be surprised that even exist. Best of the Best Quadrilogy. Yes, this has the Eric Roberts film, Philip Ree Eric Roberts film, Best of the Best, which is a really great martial arts tournament film. I love it. The second one might be even better in terms of an action movie. It's got some killer action scenes in it. I've not seen 3 or 4. I know Philip Ree directs 3 and 4 and is the star. Well, I know he's the star. I'm not sure if he directs. I'm pretty sure he took on the directorial duties too. Of course, it doesn't say on the back here. But some really underrated action flicks, especially the first 2, the ones that I've seen. And I hear 3 and 4 are pretty good too. And they're 2 of Philip Ree's bigger endeavors in terms of martial arts cinema. So really happy to have the Best of the Best collection. This is Region B. Next up, another Region B put out by 88 Films, who I love. I love their work. American Ninja. This was released before. I got this way before, I think. Who put out some of the... Somebody put out some of the American Ninja films in America, but this is a Region B release of all 4 films. American Ninja 1, 2, which has The Confrontation, that's right, and then 3 is Blood Hunt, 4 is The Annihilation. Michael Dudikoff stars in 3 out of 4 of them. I want to say, yes, comes back for the 4th one. 3 omits him, but Steve James steps into more of a prominent role. God, I love the first film so much, and the second film, but the first film for me just is such a comfort area. I love the action sequence in the warehouse. I think it's brilliantly staged. The score is perfect. The lighting, everything. The action, how calculated it is. I just love. I love American Ninja. What can I say? Dudikoff's best by far. Alright, we've got Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure. Most Excellent Collection, I should say. Excellent Adventure, Bogus Journey. Love both of these films. The first one is one of my favorites of all time. In my top 20 films ever. I love it. I think it's one of the most touching, beautiful stories ever. Or at least from the 80s. And it's a simple story about 2 slackers who end up changing the world. And I know it's sappy now, but it means a lot to me as a slacker myself. And be excellent to each other is such an immortal line. I love both of those movies. Next up, we have the Riddick collection. This has Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick, and Riddick, as well as the Dark Fury animated film by the guy who did Aeon Flux. And I'm forgetting his name. Sam Liu? I don't think that's his name. I think I got that wrong. Let me see. Let me see if it says on the inside here. Peter Chung. Peter Chung. I don't know. Sam Liu. He directs some of the DC movies, I think. Peter Chung. did Aeon Flux, and he also did Dark Fury. I love the Riddick. The Riddick movie's another sort of pulpy comfort zone for me. I think Pitch Black is fantastic, a great sci-fi horror film that's underrated. Chronicles of Riddick is more of an adventure action story, that kind of universe trotting kind of thing. Riddick is kind of back to the Pitch Black formula, and the animated film is pretty good too. Next up we have the Rush Hour trilogy. The first two are perfect. I really can't put one over the other. Not perfect movies, but perfect in the sense that, you know, they set out to do what they do and they do it perfectly. Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker have an immense amount of chemistry in those first two films. The action is fantastic. Brett Ratner directed them, but it's clear Jackie had a good hold on how the action was staged and shot, and it shows. Not so much in the third one. It seems like Jackie didn't care as much or didn't have as much control, and Ratner had more control, and it really shows, and it falters for that reason. And yeah, it has its moments, it has its funny parts, and it's a few things that I like about it, but overall, Rush Hour 3, It came much later, of course, too, so that's usually a problem. The Tarantino collection. This is still pretty sought after because it has True Romance. I think True Romance is getting a re-release, if I'm not mistaken. But this has Reservoir Dogs, True Romance, Jackie Brown, Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Death Proof, and Glorious Bastards, and 2 bonus discs. I have all of the other Tarantino films on Blu-ray. I don't think I have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yet. That hasn't rolled into my job yet. And it is odd that True Romance is in here, considering he only wrote the film. But it feels so much like a Tarantino film with a different director that they included it in this. Of course, what can be said about Tarantino? One of my favorite directors of all time. Love this collection. Alright, we've got 2 stacks left here. The Mel Brooks collection. This one has The 12 Chairs, I haven't seen. Blazing Saddles, classic. Young Frankenstein, my favorite by far in terms of Mel Brooks movies. I love Young Frankenstein. It just, for all the right reasons. Obviously, it's like a Universal monster film, but it's a parody. But at the same time, it's also telling a good Frankenstein story. It's just a brilliant movie. Silent movie I've seen the first 30 minutes of with a friend, and then I had to go home. This was years ago. Really enjoyed that. High Anxiety, The History of the World Part 1, another one that I've seen. Spaceballs, To Be or Not to Be. Robin Hood Men in Tights, I haven't seen in ages. Spaceballs, I like a lot too. That's another great Mel Brooks one there. Lord of the Rings, we have the motion picture trilogy, the extended editions, of course. This is one of my, again, prized possessions here. These are some of my favorite films of all time. As you guys know, as I've said countless times in my videos, I adore the Lord of the Rings films. And the Hobbit trilogy I have in separate discs. I don't have a cohesive set. I know there's a big 4K edition of all 6 films coming out with the theatrical and extended editions and a bunch of swag. And, it looks amazing. But this will do for now. I don't know. This means a lot to me, this one. I love Lord of the Rings, especially Fellowship of the Ring. Home Alone collection, 1 and 2. I have 3 and 4 on DVD. 1 and 2 are the better ones, of course. Macaulay Culkin, John Hughes scripts, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern. These are classics. I absolutely love these films. I usually watch them once a year around holiday time. We'll be doing that in a few months for sure. The Coen Brothers collection. This has Miller's Crossing, Raising Arizona, Blood Simple, and Fargo. So almost all gangster films, or at least crime films. Raising Arizona is a crime film in its own right, of course, but it's more of a comedy. But I love this collection, of course, because Fargo is one of my favorite films of all time. Blood Simple's up there, too. Miller's Crossing is up there, too. Love the Coen Brothers. Love their work. Some of the best directors of all time. And writers. Rocky. The Rocky collection. Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Balboa. This does not have Creed 1 and 2. I have those separately and have yet to see 5 Balboa or Creed 1 and 2. Again, savoring. As you can see, I savor movies from big series that I really love. My favorite, of course, is the original Rocky. I still think it's the best. But Rocky 4 is a close second, man. I love it. It's the most action-oriented Rocky movie, in my opinion. It's just got so much machismo, so many training sequences, and I just adore it. I adore it. We have the Steven Seagal collection. This was from overseas as well. My mother got this for me for a Christmas gift years ago. It was one that she was like, what do you want? And I was like, well, I want this. One of those Christmas gifts. Adult Christmas gifts. Under Siege 2, Hard to Kill, Nico Above the Law, and Executive Decision, which is such an odd one. I don't understand why they didn't just put marked for death on here. Maybe it was a rights issue, but executive decision is on here. Seagal, there was a big debacle on the set of this film. Seagal wanted more screen time, and the director ended up killing him off. I think, long story short, it's a Kurt Russell movie. It's really Die Hard on a plane. Steven Seagal is the leader of the team at the beginning of the film, and yeah, he's not in it for very long. But the first 4 films are Steven Seagal action movies. My favorite, it's close. I love Above the Law, Hard to Kill, and Under Siege. They're neck and neck, to be honest. Under Siege 2 I like quite a bit too. It's a fun action movie, but nothing comes close to Under Siege, Hard to Kill, Above the Law, and Marked for Death, in my opinion. Those are the best Seagal films. I might be forgetting one, but those are my favorites. The Kubrick collection, I used to have a big giant box set, sold it off to get this more affordable one. It takes up less space. Lolita, I've yet to see Lolita. 2001: A Space Odyssey, classic, love the film. Clockwork Orange, I have to rewatch. It's been many, many years, but I do love it as well. Barry Lyndon, I haven't seen. The Shining, one of my favorite films of all time. Top 10 horror. Full Metal Jacket, a harrowing film. First half takes place in the boot camp. Second half is the war, and it just takes a toll on you, boy. Eyes Wide Shut is another Kubrick I haven't seen, so as you can see, I'm savoring some Kubrick movies. Kubrick, I never know which one to say. Has a documentary, Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures, and some special features. This, I believe, is Region B, or no, you know what? It's all region, I think. So there you go. Kubrick collection. And another legend, Alfred Hitchcock collection. This has a ton of films in it. Let's go through them real quick. As you can see, another digibook type of set here. Beautiful. We've got Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, Rope. I love Rope. I've seen Rope. It's one of those pseudo one-take movies. Very, very cool concept. Great story. Rear Window, one of the greats. The Trouble with Harry. Haven't seen that one. The Man Who Knew Too Much. Vertigo, one of my favorites. Jimmy Stewart. North by Northwest, I haven't seen. Don't hurt me. Don't throw food at me. Tomatoes and eggs. I am savoring. I can't wait to watch this. I know it's going to be one that blows me away. Psycho, I love, but not as much as everybody else, believe it or not. There are a few Hitchcock films I put ahead of it. The Boyds, I love The Boyds. My mother showed me this one when I was very young, and it's always stuck with me. I still think it's great, and really one of the first examples of Nature Strikes Back in terms of cinema. Marine, that one's with, Marine, with Sean Connery. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, Sean Connery and Tippi Hedren. Torn Curtain. We've got a couple more. Topaz. And Frenzy. Yeah, which I believe Frenzy was his last... Nope, Family Plot, I think, was his last movie, if I'm not mistaken. Just a beautiful set, as you can see, guys. So glad to have this in the collection. And as you can see, I am savoring many an Alfred Hitchcock film. I've only seen a few. Next up, we have The Wonderful Worlds of Ray Harryhausen, Volume 2. Man, I wish I had Volume 1. I do own the film separately, though. Mysterious Island, Jason and the Argonauts, and First Men in the Moon, which is based on an H.G. Wells story. Each come in their separate cases here, I believe. Yep, with reversible artwork, which is really cool. First Men in the Moon, I've seen. Great movie. Not Harryhausen's best by any means. And you know, it's funny, we call these movies Harryhausen movies, but he didn't direct them. He had a large part to do with the production of them, don't get me wrong, and he did all the special effects by himself, and that's what makes them a Harryhausen movie. Argonauts is one of the best. The skeleton scene is still one of the greatest effects, I don't care what anybody says, ever to be produced on screen. And Mysterious Island, what an underrated movie. This is a 4 out of 5 for me. I love this movie. Great Harryhausen creatures, bizarre ones. There's some cool ones like giant bees and stuff like that, and their hives. Such a great special effects extravaganza. And it, of course, Nemo is played... Oh, man, who plays Nemo in this? Herbert Lom plays Captain Nemo, so really cool. I love this collection. And Indicator does such great work with the box sets. Look at guys. Don't they do amazing work here? And as you can see, a little booklet, full color booklet about the history of these films. Such a cool set. So that is The Wonderful Worlds of Ray Harryhausen. There are a bunch of these Indicator sets now that I wish I had the money to buy them, but I don't. Rambo collection. This has the first 4 films. First 4? Yeah, does it have 4? Yes. It has Rambo. It has First Blood Part 2. It has Rambo 3, and then Rambo. God, the titles confuse me. And of course we have Last Blood, which I do own on Blu-ray in the other room, in the shelf, but this is the original collection, and I'm not a big fan of Last Blood, to be honest. These are the Rambo movies that I grew up with, that I love to this day, and I think still hold up remarkably well. I don't think Last Blood's gonna hold up too well. Gotta be honest, it's kind of a Taken movie, guys. Just my opinion. Van Damme collection, one of my coveted pieces here. Hard Target. One of my favorite action films of all time. My favorite Van Damme. The Quest, Street Fighter, Sudden Death, and Lionheart. Sudden Death and Lionheart, two of my other favorite Van Damme movies. The Quest, I really enjoy. I believe he directed that one, if I'm not mistaken. And Street Fighter, of course, I love for nostalgic reasons. I watch it over and over again, probably every other year, because it's just a comforting film, because it reminds me of my youth. I was there when it came out when I was like 7 or 8, and I was excited about it. And I loved it, and still love it to this day for very different reasons. It's not a good movie. But Raul Julia and Van Damme and and just seeing them up on the big screen playing these larger-than-life characters is a treat in and of itself. Chuck Norris Total Attack Pack. This has arguably 4 of the best Chuck Norris films. Lone Wolf McQuade, one of my favorite, my second favorite. Missing in Action, Code of Silence, my first favorite. And The Delta Force, some of the greatest Norris films of all time. I did a whole comprehensive Chuck Norris video talking about his 70s and 80s films. I will be doing his 90s and going into the end of his career as well at some point. I did it with my buddy Ben. Check it out. It's long. It's an hour and a half long. It's feature length. But I love that Chuck Norris Attack Pack, boy. 3 films with Sammo Hung. Recently got this recent addition to the collection. This is a Eureka release. The Iron-Fisted Monk, Eastern Condors. The only one I've seen of the 3. Eastern Condors is really the Chinese answer to the Dirty Dozen films like that. Just a who's who of Hong Kong actors. And so many incredible action sequences with these guys. Sammo Hung is a master. The Magnificent Butcher and Iron-Fisted Monk are supposed to be 2 of his best, but I've yet to see them. This is a funny one. Going from one of the, arguably one of the greatest martial arts actors of all time, Sammo Hung, to one of the least talked about action stars of our time, Steve Austin. He tried and he failed. But it has The Stranger, Hunt to Kill, Maximum Conviction, and The Package, which I believe The Package was written by the guy who wrote John Wick, if I'm not mistaken. So I like this. It was a couple bucks. It was a steel book. It's got all the films on separate discs. Sure. Why not? Like I said, it was like $2, $3. Oh, I love this. This is so cool. It's like in the style of a pizza box, the TMNT collection. It's even got the grease stain on the back there, which I think is funny. This has the first 3 Turtles films and TMNT, the animated movie, which I didn't really enjoy the last time out, I gotta be honest, but I remember enjoying it back in the day. Who knows how I'll feel about it next time. Of course, the first 2 films are some of my favorites of all time. In my top 20, hands down. And the second film is the first film I saw in theaters, and I do remember it. I was 3 years old, my parents took me. I was a Turtles fan, I guess, even at that point. And I remember watching the show around the same time, and just, I love these movies. I would never give this up, not for anything. Not even a 4K collection. This pizza box is staying in my collection forever. Forever. Next up, we have the Fast and Furious 7 movie collection. There are now 9 movies. I have number 8 separately, and number 9 I don't think is out on Blu-ray yet, but I plan to rectify that when it comes out. I enjoy all these movies. Some are better than others, of course. There are some that I don't really care to watch again, like the 4th one, Fast and Furious. Fast 5 is amazing. Fast 6 is great. 7's really, really good. I love the 2nd one, to be honest with you. It's just a fun action movie, like a buddy action movie, in my opinion. Tokyo Drift has its moments. Fast and the Furious is where it all started, and I'm very nostalgic for it still to this day. I used to be very into cars around this time because of movies like Fast and the Furious and games like Grand Theft Auto and Gran Turismo and stuff. But Fast and the Furious took me a while to get to number 4, 5, and 6. Watched them last year or the last 2 years or so, and really enjoyed them. Really enjoyed them. Some better than others, like I said. The Shaft collection. Shaft. Shaft's Big Score and Shaft in Africa. As you can see, I've yet to crack this. This was released. This is an all-region release, if I'm not mistaken, by Warner Brothers. I think this is on Archive Collection now, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I actually haven't seen the Shaft movies. I know. I watched the Sam Jackson one back when it came out with the family, or with my father when I was like 13 or 14. Enjoyed that, but I have to go back and watch where the blaxploitation genre arguably started with this, with Shaft and Badass. Sweet Sweetback's Revenge. Melvin Van Peebles movie. Undisputed, this one's also from overseas. I wish this one had the fourth film, but it doesn't. Boyka. I still need to pick that one up on Blu-ray. It has Undisputed, the one without Atkins, the one without Boyka, actually, and with Wesley Snipes and Ving Rhames, I want to say. Yes. And then the second one brought in Michael Jai White and Scott Adkins, where Boyka was the villain, sort of a Rocky kind of scenario. And then Boyka comes back as the hero in number 3. And 4, he's also the lead role. So Scott Adkins really got his name with these movies for a reason. The action sequences, the fights in this movie are absolutely incredible. Some of the most ballet-like, well-choreographed fight sequences you'll ever see. One-on-one fight sequences. They're so fantastic, guys. Check out the Undisputed movies if you're into action. Next up, we have a couple martial arts collections. The Street Fighter collection. Sonny Chiba recently passed away. Rest in peace, man. One of the greats. One of the greatest of all time in terms of martial arts action. And that scene right there will forever stick into my head from the first Street Fighter, where he comes down on some dude and just cracks his skull, and it's this crazy special effect showing his skull cracking. Super violent films from Japan during the 70s. Violent for the time, of course. A good amount of blood. And just Sonny Chiba, his answer to Bruce, is Japan's answer to Bruce Lee in a lot of ways. He has a lot of similar mannerisms as Bruce Lee, but he kind of adds his own flavor to it. It's less flamboyant, more concentrated and focused. When he's scary, boy. When an action scene's about to happen, you know he's about to crack some skulls, man. And I've yet to see... I don't think I've seen Return of the Street Fighter. Part of me wants to say I have. No, I've seen the 2 Executioner movies. I haven't seen Return of Street Fighter or Street Fighter's Last Revenge, savoring them, but I think I should watch them soon in remembrance of Sonny Chiba. Sister Street Fighter. This was an offshoot from the Street Fighter series. I've not seen any of these, and I've yet to open it. Both of these, by the way, Shout Select, Arrow Video. I know they have a very similar look to them. I thought both of them were Shout Select for a second. But this is the Sister Street Fighter collection. Awesome to have this. Sold off my DVDs to fund that. Ultimate Matrix collection. Matrix is one of my favorite films of all time. Again, in my top 10. I know I say that a lot, but I have a lot of movies that kind of shift in and out of my top 10, top 20, and I have bunch of movies like The Matrix that never move from my top 10. This has The Matrix, Matrix Revolutions, or Matrix Reloaded Revolutions, and the Animatrix, of course, and then a whole disc of special features. Of course, we have Matrix, what the hell is it called? Resurrection coming out soon. I know the trailer just dropped. Let me know what you guys think of it, how it looks, but I'm not watching the trailer. I'm going into it blind. I hope it surprises. We shall see. I'm optimistically skeptical about the film. All the people are coming back for it. You know, I think Lana Wachowski is directing it. Yes, Lana Wachowski is directing it and writing it, so I hope it's good. We shall see. Herzog collection. This one is out of print now and has cobwebs, because all these box sets are up on the top of my Blu-ray shelves. This one's out of print. Really hard to find. I contemplated selling this off when I was in a hard time, but I ended up choosing my Zatoichi set over this, and now that's out of print, and I regret that, so... Tough times, man, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Alright, I'll go over the films real quick. Even Dwarfs Started Small, Land of Silence and Darkness, Fata Morgana, which is a documentary I've seen, which is beautiful and tragic and haunting. Aguirre, The Wrath of God, such a wonderful film about a madman trying to go head-to-head with nature and losing consistently, but he will not let up. He's Klaus Kinski. You know the story behind the film, and yeah, it actually has... the documentary on here, My Best Fiend, which is about the relationship between Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski. The Enigma of Caspar Hauser, Heart of Glass, Strozek, Wojciech, Nosferatu the Vampire, which I've yet to see, Fitzcarraldo, which I have to see soon, Ballad of the Little Soldier, Where the Green Ants Dream, Cobra Verde, Lessons of Darkness, Little Dieter Needs to Fly, and My Best Fiend. I obviously have a lot of Herzog to watch. I've seen a couple of his documentaries that aren't on this set, and I really love his work. He's one-of-a-kind filmmaker, of course, and can't wait to dig into the Herzog collection. This is a Shout Factory release. I just want to thank you all for checking out this long video showing all of my movie Blu-ray box sets, guys. Like I said, the Mummy one is somewhere in my in my piles over here, and I didn't feel like going through, but it is a steelbook. Everything else, though, I think was counted for, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'd love to know what your favorite Blu-ray movie box set is, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below. We'll get a little discussion rolling. I was a little ahead of myself there. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications. I have a Patreon and t-shirts. Links are in the description below. Feel free to check those out if you so please. Anyway, guys, I will see you all next time. Bored Cyborg is out.